Good afternoon, everyone, to another exciting episode of BWHR Voices. Today we have with us Mr. Amit Chincholikar, Global CHRO, Yokohama Off Highway Tires. So we welcome you on board. It's a pleasure for us to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sugandh. I think it's a privilege and an honor to have this conversation with you. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
having
much,
me.
sir. For those of you who are again excited for our today's conversation on what's the topic going to be, so today we are discussing on how to navigate technological advancements in workplace. So just a small summary you could say, or an introduction of what exactly this topic entails to and what all we'll be speaking about. Well, in today's fast-paced and ever-evolving business landscape, technological advancements have become an integral part of any workplace. From automation to artificial intelligence, businesses are embracing technology to improve productivity, streamline processes, and stay ahead of competition. Now, while technology can certainly bring significant business benefits to businesses, navigating these advancements can be a challenge. It is crucial for organizations to understand the implications of these advancements and adopt a strategy to effectively implement them. Now, while we have a brief backdrop of what the conversation will go like and what all we'll be speaking about, Mr. Chincholikar, my first question to you is first of all, people would like to know the potential benefits and drawbacks of incorporating technology into workspace, considering the fact that we know that technological advancement is an integral part in any sector now across industries. But like every coin has its two sides, so it would have some benefits as well as drawbacks. So first of all, we'd like to know, what are those potential benefits and drawbacks?
Sure, Sugandh. That's a really interesting question. Let me start by saying that I believe that technology is important because it actually creates the future, right? We are able to be part of what we call as the next, and it enables us to create things that do not exist. So basically, if you were to go back around let's say 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago, you would look at certain things that existed that we take for granted today. I mean, be it mobile phones or be it the internet, and forms of connectivity and things like that, which actually didn't even exist at that point in
Right.
time. So the benefit of technology is that it is always an exciting window that it gives you into the future.
Okay.
And by nature, human beings are curious. We always like to know what lies ahead. And a big answer to that, in terms of what is it that is actually possible within and beyond the realms of our imagination, actually comes from technology. So technology is, in that sense, a great place, or a great, how shall I say, boon, in that sense to have. The thing about technology is the premise that, are we for technology or is technology for us, right? And what happens is, very often, they say that the technology that you use actually impresses no one, but it's the experience that you create with it which is everything.
Exactly.
So technology enables you create a set of experiences that otherwise did exist, which is point number one. I think the big benefit of technology also is that there is a significant contribution that technology can make towards sustainable living. And what do I mean by that? If you look at the way, if you're driving down the road and you look at the evolution of, let's say, hoardings that existed at a point in time, right? You would use paints, you would use a set of people who would climb up, use it, do it, there would be paint, there would be fumes, etc. At some point in time, that got replaced by posters, it got replaced by banners. Now
Right.
everything is just electronic, right? So it just enables you to move and change things so much faster in that sense. So technology, I think, has got a very significant impact in terms of how is it that you can live sustainably. I think I mean, the benefits. I think we all understand, and we have all embraced those benefits. In a great way. I mean, technology, one should remember, is and like I always like to describe it, right? Technology is a great servant, but it's a very powerful master.
Right.
And what that means is that if you get into a situation wherein you are unable to harness or leverage the power of technology in the right direction, right? It can play havoc in two or three ways, right? It is the appropriation of technology for misuse is very significant, and we see that either in the form of hacking or everything that we are seeing in terms of collapse of Bitcoin and things like that. But more fundamentally, the dependence on technology can get us to a level wherein we have absolutely no idea of how is it that you operate in what we like to call as offline mode. So I mean, there have been instances, and the greatest one that I recall is the tragedy of an Air France flight which was operating from Sao Paulo to Paris,
Right.
AF447, and it went down in the middle of the Atlantic because the pilots had no clue on what the plane was doing, right? And therefore the good old fashioned way of just flying an aircraft is something that people didn't know. So we must understand that dependence on technology is meant to make our life better. It is not meant to replace us or our thinking,
Right.
in a lot of ways. So if you were to extend the same logic to the workplace, you will actually find that people who are able to effectively leverage technology for productivity, for improvements, to be able to get better, right? To be able to save time, to be able to, and most importantly, to delight their customers, because it's about creating the experience,
Right.
are the ones who are able to leverage its power. But people, I think, who over rely on technology and expect it to do everything, technology can't replace the human mind.
Right.
So people who expect to do the thinking, to do technology people who expect technology to do the thinking on their behalf, or people who resist, and are stubborn about the advancement of technology, are the people who kind of get impacted at the workplace.
But sir, don't you think now it is such an integral part of any and every segment that it is more of a tool to provide a seamless experience? But how can you limit the use of technology into any workplace or any segment? That is also very necessary, because everything and anything, if the dependency gets onto on a bigger role, and then the intention or the implication of it, as an employee, I would feel that I might get replaced at some point in time. So very rightly you said that it cannot replace the human touch, but it can very well reduce the use of human intervention with excessive use of technology into any space. So how can we curb that?
So yeah, I think that's a great point, Sugandh. I think the important thing to remember is, technology relies a lot on predictability. And what that means is technology can effectively take away a lot of roles that are repetitive and therefore predictable. And that will happen because that does improve, how shall I say, that does improve efficiency. A machine can work much better, for example, on the shop floor to be able to, do things at a pace that is significantly faster, etc. All of that. So from that point of view, as a productivity metric, technology can do wonders. But think of it this way: it actually provides the human being with an opportunity to be able to understand the value that technology can deliver in repetitive jobs. But a lot of stuff that you otherwise do, which is reimagining the future, right? Thinking about what your customers need, what is it that your customers want? Because look, at the end of the day, I always say that it's never the company that pays your salary, it's the customer that pays your salary. So, are you effectively leveraging what your customer needs are, what your customer wants are? And technology is only one of the many ways in which you can fulfill that demand. Now, one may believe that this is true just for sales roles or customer facing roles. It's not true. So, for example, for HR, as an example, right? Who is the customer? The customer, one could argue, is the employee. So
Right.
how is it that you are able to seamlessly leverage, technology to give the employee a great onboarding experience, right? So the technology can put out the onboarding experience from the point of view of delivering it through a particular mode, which could be augmented reality, virtual reality, through gamification. But the concept of what is it that that induction should cover, or what is it that that onboarding should cover,
Mm-hmm.
is something that technology doesn't do. That is what the human mind does, right? That is what you think about. So technology effectively becomes a means to an end. So as long as you are in a position wherein you're always thinking about how is it that you can improve the experience of your customer, whoever that may be, how is it that you're able to do things in a faster way, in a stronger way, as long as that happens, technology basically is an enabler. So I like to say that technology will listen to you if you are very clear on the instructions you want to give to it. I mean, if you were to look at a vacuum cleaner, right? I
Hmm.
mean, a vacuum cleaner came into our house, or that automatic robo cleaner that
Right.
that you have that came into our houses, particularly during COVID. Now, one can say that has it replaced, the Kamwali Bai, who used to come and do this work in your house? Absolutely, yes.
No. Yeah.
But what it means is that there is an opportunity for that lady or that people who are doing that job to be able to do something else. So if
That
you are in
requires
a role,
upskilling, to add something to your role that doesn't is not defined by the robot that you're getting at your place. Because yes, a human coming to a place and cleaning your house and doing other activities will be far different than what a robot does. So yes, you very rightly said, actually in their role as well, it is, we consider it as a very menial role, but then in their role also upskilling is the need of the hour.
I
Because
totally, I know, absolutely,
technology
no question.
can replace them as well. I mean, it's not just the employee working in a corporate realm, it's got to do with people in in everyday households as well.
Absolutely. So, like I said, something which is predictable and something which is repetitive is where technology comes in, right? That's where they are really able to do a fantastic job. But for example, at the other realm, if you have, you've got, IBM revolutionized the way you play chess because of something called the Deep Blue, right? Which is a
Mhm.
computer that they invented that could play chess. Now, the Deep Blue eventually beat a human being at that. And then we said, oh, my God, the rise of the machines is here. But if you think of it, the Deep Blue was actually programmed by a human being, right?
Hmm,
I mean, a
exactly.
machine doesn't think on its own, right? Even with artificial intelligence, very often it depends on what's the input you give it. So how is it that you're able to program it? So I mean, I'm a great votary and a great believer that you can truly leverage technology to make life simpler, to make life easier, to make life faster, to make life more livable, to make life more comfortable. But you've got to be clear that you do the thinking and technology does the implementation. The moment you want to do it the other way around is where the
Hmm.
problem is.
No, of course, I completely get it. Now, how can companies ensure that employees are trained to effectively use technology and balance the desire for efficiency and innovation with concerns about job security and automation?
So like I said, automation effectively comes into parts of the organization which are really predictable and repetitive. And there will be jobs like that in every organization. There's no doubt about that. Now, what is it that organizations can do? I think it is about early identification of what are jobs of this nature, which effectively are, what we call as predictable and repetitive. Now, those could be in the office, they could be on the shop floor. But the key is there is an opportunity to upskill if you are able to train or get a set of people to operate and leverage how is it that technology can be deployed in these areas. So what it means is instead of someone actually physically doing let's say filing that was being done, if someone knows how to operate a system that allows everything to be uploaded electronically, let's say,
Mhm.
right, and then ensure that there is a virtual file that's put into place, what it effectively does is it frees up 30, 40, 50% of the of the time of an individual who was just doing that filing in the first place. Now what's the opportunity? The opportunity is to be able to leverage the 30, 40, 50% of the time to be able to do something even more productive. And then one could say that okay, when you needed 5 people or somewhere where you needed 10 people, now you need you need only two. Absolutely. But that's where there is such a significant opportunity that we have in a country like India, right? There are so many opportunities, we have so many entrepreneurs. There is actually a chronic shortage of talent in this country simply because uh, there are so many skills that we need, particularly that are driven by technology. And I'm not talking about the hardcore technology development skills. I'm talking about technology application skills, right? How is
Okay.
it that you're able to leverage that? If you look at some of the best ideas that came, that are technology enabled, be it Amazon, be it Airbnb, be it Uber, for example, None of these are technology. I mean, you could call them technology companies, but the key is someone thought of an idea that how is it that I can revolutionize urban transportation without owning an asset? It's the idea, right? Which
Exactly.
then gets enabled by technology. So I think as long, and that's the beauty of the human mind, right? You keep getting inspired to do newer and better things constantly. I mean, at some stage you were talking of delivery. I mean, you thought that delivery to your home would never be possible, through, for groceries.
Drones.
Then,
Yeah.
yeah, then you started thinking that maybe it's possible the same day. Now you've got it down to a science where you can deliver it in 10 minutes, right? So what
Exactly.
I'm saying is, so now this is all of this is enabled by technology, right? But
But
the
the
thought
thought process is of a human.
because, and again it comes back to the same point, no one cares about the technology if you don't understand the experience it offers, right? And if
Right.
you're therefore able to leverage that to say what is the experience that people are looking for, what is it that the customer is truly seeking, if you're able to leverage that well, Sugandh, I think nobody ever has to worry about losing their job or becoming redundant or any of that. The challenge is if you are doing something that is repetitive and you enjoy doing only that, then there will be a challenge. 100% there will be
Exactly.
difficulty, in that sense. So for example, even, that's why they always say that we are now changing even the national education policy to move away from the system of rote learning, which is what we did, because rote
Mm.
learning effectively makes you like a machine, right? You're predictable
Right.
and you're repetitive. Now if you're able to move out of that into the realms of creative thinking, which is what the national education policy is also talking about of the country, I think there is no shortage of opportunity. There is plenty of scope for everyone to survive and thrive, particularly in India.
Fair enough. So, sir, how can companies, in your view, encourage a culture of innovation and experimentation? Because you rightly said, as NEP is also working towards creativity and getting the bent and moving away from rote learning. So, how can companies encourage a culture of innovation and experimentation while minimizing the risk of failure? Because at the end of it, productivity is something that you would require, be it if in my I am in my creativity mode or I am in my experimentation mode, I am only given that place to experiment if I can produce results. So then there should be minimization of failures as well. On every step you cannot expect the employers to happily accept your failures because they need productivity at the end. So what can companies do to encourage such a culture?
So look, I think you're absolutely right that some of these things sometimes are counterintuitive because it's almost like saying, God, give me patience, but hurry. Right? It's equivalent to saying that. No, but
Exactly.
I think if you look at every company across the world that is seen as a beacon of innovation, you have to look at their book of failures to know the number of things that they tried before they succeeded. So the mantra in today's day and age, the way I see it is, you can if you fail fast and you fail cheap, that's the mantra that companies should adopt. And like I said, the key, to being able to do that is to constantly keep trying new things. I like to equate this with an example of throwing darts at the dartboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you throw 20 darts, it's possible that four will fit or four will, kind of land. If you throw only four, chances that some of them will succeed will be low. So I think companies have actually gone the other extreme by discouraging risk taking. And if you look at
Okay.
companies that have really, if you look at how companies have really succeeded, risk taking and innovation always goes hand in hand with agility, which is
Mhm.
you take a risk, you look at whether it's working or not. If it's not working, you should be in a position to move that quickly and move on. Now, I agree that otherwise we are in a system that actually only celebrates successes and penalizes failure. And I think that's
Mm.
where companies can do a lot more by encouraging people to come up with their ideas and celebrating failures. Now what do I mean by that? There are various companies that call out and say, hey, listen, we tried so many things, right? Lots of them failed, but hey, I like the idea that someone's thinking, someone's doing something better,
Mhm.
someone's coming up with ideas. I think the other thing that I've always realized is that the best systems of innovation work when you encourage a culture of transparency for people who are closest to on the ground, which closest to the customer, to be able to have free access to have a conversation with anybody in the system, right? If you create a hierarchical structure where someone has to speak to somebody, someone has to speak to somebody, someone has to speak to somebody, and then kind of come through, then you've created a system where you've killed innovation by enforcing too much of hierarchy. So let me give you an example, right? If you go into a hotel and you're checking into a hotel, and the front on duty, the front desk receptionist, they figure out it's your birthday. They find out when you're checking in, when you give your Aadhaar card, it's your birthday. So there are two ways, right? Someone could say happy birthday, ma'am, nicely, and there could be another front desk receptionist who quickly speaks to the let's say to the restaurant, and before you are able to get to your room, there is a cake that has come in there that has been placed to say happy birthday.
Right.
What you've done is you've delivered an experience which that customer is unlikely to ever forget, right?
Exactly.
That comes from a sense of empowerment that the front desk receptionist has to be able to take a decision. Now sometimes it will go wrong, right? But if the front desk receptionist has to take approval of her manager, who may be on leave at that time, who then needs to speak to the food and beverage manager, who will then speak to the chef, who will then find out whether a cake is available or not, you've lost the opportunity, right?
Exactly.
So innovation comes best when you are able to empower people, and you are able to tolerate failure by with the mantra, like I said, of fail safe and fail fast. See, if your intent is in the right direction, very often it's okay. It does happen. People will fail. The other is, it's always important to empower people who are on the front line, in front of the customer, or taking decisions on behalf of your company with the customer. Who are the people? They are the ones who are empowered the most. So I think innovation and growth in these areas comes when people are secure, and for people to be secure, they need to be empowered, and for people to be empowered, the system needs to be tolerant of failure. So I mean, of course, it's easier said than done in a lot of ways. When companies get measured every 90 days, when they've got to stand up in front of investors and talk about what you've delivered. But if you look at it from the point of view of companies that have constantly delivered innovation, be it Apple, be it 3M, any of these companies, you'll find that they have a culture of so many things that they failed at before they were able to succeed. So
No, of course. And they should be
that's
welcome to failures as well, but easier said than done. At least it is heartening to hear that companies are now talking about, accepting employees' failure as well, because then in that case, you will not be able to foster the creativity aspect that you're trying to inculcate in form of a culture within any organization if you're not acceptable or tolerant of failures. Lastly, sir, it's an important question from people from the from the point of view of people from disabled backgrounds. How can companies ensure that they too are getting the technology access unlike the other employees? Because usually, the people with special needs, they are employed, but they're employed from a perspective that they have to fill in their CSR checklist. And sometimes they also feel that they're not given those enough opportunities that a person with not this background is getting. But technology is something that is actually enabling them to work for them. It is working wonders, it is working miracles, it is the reason why they are being chosen into any organization. So how can organizations stand and put their foot front and talk about the aspect and create a culture wherein technology is first enabled to them in every and any other aspect?
I think that's a great question, Sugandh. And I think organizations are missing out on a huge opportunity if they start looking at PWDs, or people with special abilities, as part of their CSR checklist. I think it's a shame, and the reason why I say that is science has proved this repeatedly, right? That if you have a lesser of one sense, right? Let's say, it could be sight, or it could be smell, it could be sound, anything. It just means that your other four senses are far more powerful compared to other sets of people.
Exactly.
That's point number one. Yeah. Point number two, thanks to technology, now, you really do not need, and I mean, people are able to adapt and understand technology, including people with special needs, or people with PWDs, people with disabilities, are able to operate and leverage that with various types of software that are actually adequately available, installed, and in use. So, for example, there's a software called JAWS that helps those who might be visually impaired, right?
Right.
A lot of places, they are a lot of companies, for example, if you go to a retail store, it is possible that the person who's doing your checkout or the person who's your cashier or things like that can be people with disabilities or special needs, simply because the system is leveraged or put together in such a way that they are able to do far more. I think the challenge happens when companies see this as tokenism, Sugandh, which is that if I have to add four people, I just do it, but I miss out simple things like adding a ramp that may be needed at my workplace, or I
Exactly.
sometimes I miss the fact that the height at which I'm putting, the bolt by which a door is to be opened, can it be reached by someone who's in a wheelchair? If you place it much higher, you've lost the plot.
You
So
lost.
sometimes what happens is it's about the simple things that you need to do, that you're able to kind of get right, that
And before
companies miss out on.
having such people in your organization, your thought process needs to be in line. I am not doing this for my CSR activities or as a checklist or as a marker of tokenism. I actually need good talent in my company, irrespective of what disability they are, what color, what sex, what creed. I just need mere talent in my organization.
And it's a huge, I completely agree with you, Sugandha. And it is such a huge untapped area, because these are people who are hungrier to succeed. They have a point to prove. They work incredibly hard and they're able to deliver significant value. I think it's just about being able to point them in the right direction. The
Right.
key is, if you do this out of pity, or if you do this out of, thinking that, there is a budget or a quota that I have to fill, that is completely disrespectful, because then what
Exactly.
happens is you have marginalized them even before they walk through the door, right?
Right.
And
No, no,
if
I
you
very.
do that,
Mhm.
yeah, and if you do that, then obviously you will have kind of difficulty in some of these cases. So for example, if you look at how the hospitality industry effectively utilizes folks like this, right? There are so many restaurants that you have wherein you've got people who are visually impaired who are serving you and things like that. Now, it's not that you're going to be doing anyone a favor by doing this, right? It's just that, all you need is a menu to be there in braille. All you need is sometimes a little bit more patience to ensure that it may take you a little bit longer time, to
Yeah.
kind of serve. But the biggest thing you need to provide, people who are differently able, is dignity and respect. Because if you
Exactly.
provide that, they always significantly outperform wherever you may be. And that's where I think technology is a great leveler, right? I mean, because when you're doing and that's what the pandemic really taught us, because you can be anywhere across the world. But if
Mhm.
you're able to get on to a phone call, if you have to, or a Zoom meeting, or an overall conversation, then the technology is a great leveler, because then you don't have to worry about your turn to
Exactly.
speak, whether people will look at you differently when you're speaking and all of that. So I think it's an incredible opportunity that a lot of companies have leveraged and leveraged very well.
Indeed, they are leveraging, and it's very heartening to see that, companies like you are also talking about it. There are many other companies talking about it and actually
Yeah.
putting things into effect, not just talking, not just strategizing, but putting things into effect. Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Your analysis and the anecdotes that you've shared and kind of mixed it with the responses that you wanted to inculcate. It is so heartening to see that it was all bridged in a way that you can map it out what exactly you wanted to convey. People who have questions, please tag sir on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and ask your questions directly. He'll be happy to respond and solve all your queries. For us, it's been a very pleasurable experience, sir. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Sugandh. It was a pleasure being here, and like I said, technology enabled us to connect on this platform,
Platform.
to be able to
Yeah.
do this. But the value came from the kind of questions you asked, right? I
Thank you so
mean,
much, sir.
thank you for making it enriching, and once again proving the point that technology by itself means nothing, but it's about the experience that it gives to the user. So I had a wonderful experience being here. Thank you for making it special for me, Sugandh.
Thank you so much, sir. Pleasure. Pleasure is all ours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.